welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 476, and today's date is September 25th, 2014, and the title of this episode is Central Bankers' U.S. Government Troop Buildup in Iraq to Occupy Syria. Now, we can see right now they are continually bombing inside Syria, but what's very interesting is that the Islamic State / Free Syrian Army, which they're one and the same, they've already been notified that the bombings were coming. They knew exactly where the bombs were going to fall, and they were told to get out of that area. So basically what's happening is the United States central bankers and their coalition of those Arab nations are bombing the infrastructure inside Syria right now. They're opening up a corridor towards Turkey, they're opening up a corridor towards Iraq and clearing out the entire east side of Syria and the northern east side of Syria, and they're removing everything in its path. Now, of course, the Islamic State and Free Syrian Army are going to be moving towards the west of Syria, where Damascus is, and again, we have to remember their plan is to remove Assad, but of course they can't go after him right away because that would be way too obvious, and this would be, oh, this is why the United States central bankers are in the country. So what's happening is as they push the Islamic State towards the west of Syria, guess what's going to happen? The United States central bankers are going to follow, because wherever the Islamic State is, that's where they're going to bomb. But of course they're going to radio ahead and tell them that, yes, we'll be bombing in this area, please move out, and they'll bomb the area. Then they'll push them again closer to Damascus, and it seems like this is part of their plan. And as they are doing this, they are demolishing the infrastructure. Now, of course, there are a lot of civilians in these areas. They're hitting a lot of people. A lot of people are getting killed. And, of course, the mainstream media is not reporting on this whatsoever. Let's get into the economic collapse news, and we'll talk more about this a little bit later in the report. Now, we see that Argentina, they defaulted, and of course here in the United States there was a court order where both sides had to come and meet and talk about the default, and Argentina pretty much said absolutely not, we are not doing this. We are now joining the BRIC nations. They're in process of doing this. They have made deals with Russia. They have made deals with China. They are pumping in billions of dollars into their economy. And right now, Argentina, they are saying that they've pulled out of the recession in the second quarter. And of course, all other places are looking at this saying this is impossible. How did this happen? They're saying that, yes, this is true. We are getting back on our feet. And they're not even looking back in their mirror here and looking at the bond default. They're going forward, working with the BRIC nations, and we kind of thought this was going to be what was happening here, and it seems like this is exactly what's going on. They're just like, okay, dump the debt. We're going forward. We're taking the money from China. We're taking the money from Russia, and we're going to build our economy. I mean, Greece is doing the same thing. They've had many tranches of loans from the IMF, which completely put them into debt. Unemployment skyrocketing. They had no way out of this mess, and they started making deals with China. And these are economic deals, not loans, but economic deals to pull them out of the banker debt situation. Now, here in the United States, we knew in the second quarter that durable goods was skyrocketing up, and of course we said this was because of the sale of airplane parts and the orders coming into Boeing and things like that. Well, that period is completely over, and what has happened since the 318% increase in durable goods? Well, it came crashing down, and we're seeing that durable goods pretty much slid by 18.2%, and it's going to continually fall as time goes on, because again, this was a one-off thing. Of course, the U.S. government, the Fed, they're all looking at these numbers and they're saying this is unbelievable, the economy is on track, everything is perfect, and we're now seeing it all falling apart. Now, we see this a lot in all different parts of the economy where they try to manipulate the numbers and they try to pump it up. We see it with autos, which is part of the retail sales, where they channel stuff, a lot of the car lots, to make it look like manufacturing is improving, to make it look like people are buying cars. They will take anyone they will allow anyone with a with no credit whatsoever, as long as you have a heartbeat, they'll give you a loan for a car to make it look like car sales are really ramping up. But when you take out automobiles from retail sales, what do we see? We see retail sales completely declining. Same thing with real estate. They had hedge fund investors, they had speculators, they had foreign investors all paying in cash, getting free money from the Federal Reserve, and they've been pumping the real estate market up. A lot of these investors are starting to leave. We're seeing existing home sales start to decline. And we're also seeing mortgage applications continually declining each week. Leading indicator of how real estate is doing is continually declining. And now we're seeing an uptick of mortgage delinquencies. Now, why is this? Well, we understand a lot of these major corporations have been laying off people. These people have certain amount of time on severance packages, then they apply for unemployment, and depending on what their mortgage is, they can't meet these payments because they cannot find a job. And now we're starting to see the mortgage delinquencies rate jump by about 5% in August, and this is going to continually rise as we go down the line into fall and winter, and it's really going to pick up. And of course, once you have delinquencies, what else follows? Yes, foreclosures, people trying to get out of the market, people trying to sell their homes. And what are we going to see? We're going to see that they're going to have a very tough time selling houses, because that means there's going to be a lot of houses put up for sale. And what we're seeing right now, people are having a problem selling their homes right now. There are houses now on the market on average 60, 90, 120 days. They've been lowering their price. Traffic has been drying up. It is not going well. The delinquent inventory increased by 146,000 from July, and the majority are early stage delinquencies. So we're really going to see this pick up, and we're going to see this number rise, because as mortgage applications continually dive, existing home sales continually dive, we're seeing new home building starting to decline right now. Of course, it was pumped up way back in February, March, April, May, and the new houses are built, and now we're already seeing from home builders that their revenues are starting to drop, because now we're coming out of that bump in the summer, moving into the fall, going into winter, and things really start to fall apart. Now, we understand that Obamacare, a complete disaster. I mean, this thing is not doing what the government thought it was going to do. And of course, no one knew what it was going to do, because they didn't get to read it, because you had to pass it to understand it and to read it. But what's very interesting is that the government paid WebMD about $14 million to promote Obamacare. Now, I've said this many, many times. If you are doing something for the people, you do not have to promote this. They will understand that this is good for them. It is fantastic. You don't have to say, yes, this health insurance is fantastic. Please take it. And it seems like they're trying to use WebMD as this authority-type website to say, yes, since we approve of it, everyone should be taking Obamacare. But once again, they are pretty much misleading people, because you do not need other organizations, and you don't have to pay them $14 million to promote something that is already good, where the government is looking after their people and trying to give them something to help them. The only reason you have to do this type of promotion is to convince people that it is good for them when it really isn't. And we can see right now, since they created Obamacare, it is becoming very, very expensive. Already, the Obamacare website is about $2.1 billion. This is how much it costs right now. And it looks like this health reform has cost American taxpayers about $73 billion in the last 4 years, and it's still going up. So this is really not here to help the everyday American. This is really here to pretty much line the insurance companies' pockets, to bring revenue into the country, to support the central bankers and not support the people. And we're noticing from many people around the country, their premiums are going up. They're not getting the benefits they thought. Their deductibles are very high. And again, once the deductibles are high, since the deductibles are very high like this, you have to pay out of pocket first before the insurance companies even chip in for the medical assistance. And again, the youth of America not joining Obamacare. They thought they would have the youth pay for the older generation. It is not working. So now they have the illegals coming in, and of course they don't make enough money. They're getting the low-wage jobs. So of course the government is coming in, subsidizing their health insurance, but it looks like they're trying to use this to boost the numbers for Obamacare, and the government is paying for their health insurance. Okay, now it looks like in Australia they're trying to pass a counterterrorism legislation amendment for foreign fighters, Bill 2014, and it seems like this will allow Australia to monitor the entire web on just one warrant. Also, the bill will introduce the concept of delayed notification search warrant, often referred to in the United States as no-knock warrant, which would allow Australian federal police to search premises without prior warning and without having to produce the warrant at the time of the entry and service. Now, we're seeing a lot of this occur where they're rewriting the laws, where they're saying we don't need a warrant for this, we're taking away your rights, we'll just do whatever we have to do. This one warrant is good for everything we want to do, and they're doing this on purpose because in every single country they need to take away everybody's rights. Now we see the FBI right now has pretty much taken their facial recognition program. It went live, and we understand Real ID, which is controlled by DHS, where they want all the states to come into compliance, where they will issue your driver's license, and of course there'll be an RFID chip and a barcode on the back, and this will be linked up to the FBI database with facial recognition and DNA, and eventually they're going to get around to taking everyone's DNA. The FBI is preparing to accelerate the collection of DNA profiles for the government's massive new biometric identification database. The so-called rapid DNA system can draw up a profile in about 90 minutes. Various FBI divisions are collaborating to develop and implement foundational efforts to streamline and automate law enforcement's DNA collection process. Privacy groups right now are very, very worried because they're saying that they're looking to initiate something called stop and swab, just like they have the stop and frisk laws in New York and in Detroit, where they're saying the police will be on the side of the roads, they'll stop, they want to take a swab of you. This will go into the DNA database, and this is how they'll continually get DNA evidence from you. And eventually, what I see happening, since the Real ID is coming into effect, they're going to want to take your DNA, your iris scan when you apply for your license. So all of this will go into their database, and now they'll have the ability to track you. Now, of course, this is completely against your rights. And it's a violation of your privacy, but it looks like they're trying to push this forward because they're going to use this in various ways. Like one of the ways, if you do not have a Real ID, you cannot fly on a plane. Eventually, you'll have to go through checkpoints. They'll do a scan of your ID. Hopefully, you are who you are. And you can see how this is becoming a police state. And they're going to use this information to correlate everything, because when this collapse comes and the riots begin, they need to know who is a threat to the authority of the United States, and that is our government. And you can see already this is why they've had this person who jumped the fence, got through all their sensors, made it up the front door. You see what they did already. They took a 12-foot buffer zone and put another fence. They're going to continually push this back because they're afraid of the American people, and already they're creating barriers around the White House. And you're going to see this happen along many of the government buildings because they're very, very worried about the American people. Okay, now remember that whole story with Boko Haram down in Nigeria with the United States, and Michelle Obama was up there holding the sign, 100 girls got kidnapped, then 100 boys got kidnapped, then they were blowing up colleges, then they were part of the Islamic State. Now, of course, we knew what this was all about. This was to get into Nigeria. They wanted to bring the military soldiers into this area because China has a very good relationship with Nigeria. There has been a recent discovery of a huge amount of natural resources, so they brought these soldiers into Chad, which borders against Nigeria, hoping to get into the country. But it hasn't happened yet because the government in Nigeria has said, listen, we will handle our own issues here, our own problems, our own terrorists. We don't need you to come in here. But what's very interesting, we're starting to see that this leader of Boko Haram really died in 2009, and there was an imposter. Mohammed Bashir was an imposter posing as Boko Haram's leader. Now, since this came out, the Nigerian military has said that more than 260 Boko Haram militants have surrendered in the northeastern Nigeria. So their entire tactic of getting into Nigeria is falling apart. Now, as we know, the U.S. still wants to get into many of the countries in South Africa. They're not going to give up. They're going to keep trying. And, of course, they're using Ebola, which I still do believe this is what they're doing down there. And we'll have to see. And we also know that the United States and France and other private Western Central Bank countries are getting into countries like Mali. They're moving into Sudan. We understand the United States has soldiers in Sudan, and there's a type of civil war going on there. China is sending an additional 700 troops to this area to protect their investments in this area. Already there's 1,800 troops there. They're saying additional 700. And like I said before, I know we haven't had the big boom of World War III or the big announcement of it, but we've been fighting Russia, China, in all these different locations. Yes, it hasn't gone mainstream where people say, wow, this is really picking up and China's really involved. But when you look at what's happening in Africa, when you look what's happening up in Ukraine, we can see right now they're pushing to fight China and Russia. They are not letting up. Now, it looks like Yatsenyuk in Ukraine is saying that they should not lift the sanctions right now. The Western countries should not lift sanctions on Russia until Kiev captures the land controlled by the southeastern people. Like I said, the bankers, and he's part of the banking system, he was put in there by the U.S. government central bankers. The puppet regime was already picked to be put into government, and he is taking orders from the central bank saying, listen, we want Ukraine, the entire Ukraine, and do not give up. And you can see right now, they will not give up. They want Crimea, they want the southeastern section, and they're going to push this as hard as they possibly can. Now, out in Yemen, we understand the tribes pretty much pushed out the government there. They took back their country. They set up a new government, and we can see already the central bankers, U.S. government, are very nervous. The State Department has now ordered a cut in the number of American government staff in Yemen after the rebels, which I say the tribes, the people of the country, seized the capital city. Again, the U.S. officials are saying, listen, we need to start to evacuate the people in Yemen. We're losing control there. The same thing happened in Libya. The U.S. government officials removed the staff inside of Libya. Now we have two countries here that we're evacuating. Well, Libya's already evacuated, but Yemen, we're evacuating all the government officials because Yemen is falling to the people, and the U.S. government is losing control of the entire region. And we can see this is why the war inside Iraq going into Syria is being ramped up. They ran out of time. They're losing control of the Middle East, and they're desperately trying to either maintain control of the Middle East by going back into these countries. But again, how would they explain that to the American people? Oh, we have to go back in because our puppet government was overthrown. No, it's a very difficult thing to convince people to go back in some place where they said, yes, we've done it, we mission accomplished. But here we are back in Iraq. We're doing the same exact thing. In Lebanon, things are really getting worse there. Right now, Lebanese security sources said that ISIS was trying to create a strife in area. So what they're doing is they're bringing the Islamic State into Lebanon because they want everyone to realize wherever these terrorist groups go, which are controlled by the United States, Israel, UK, and other Arab nations, we have to follow and we have to get them. And we can see right now that they're trying to use this in Lebanon because what's happening in Lebanon is the tribes are really winning against the puppet government inside Lebanon. And right now the United States has reported that additional military shipments to Lebanon has been authorized. Officials said the U.S. military oversaw the delivery of air-to-ground missiles to the Lebanese military. Specifically this week brought the delivery of more Hellfire missiles to the Lebanese army. So we can see they're bringing in more and more military equipment. They want more in there because they realize that the tribes will overrun the government eventually. Hale said the U.S. military would also equip Cessna already acquired by the Lebanese Air Force with unspecified weapons. He said the U.S. effort was being financed by Saudi Arabia. So right now, they're trying to maintain control of Lebanon, but it's definitely falling. The tribes are really making it very difficult for the government, and eventually what we're going to see is pretty much the same thing that happened in Libya and Yemen, and right now the central bankers are completely losing control of the Middle East. Now, a senior Iranian diplomat has denounced recent U.S.-led air raids in Syria, saying that they are not going after the Islamic State. They're going after the civilian population and the infrastructure inside Syria. These are their main targets. And yes, they are. This is what they're trying to do. They're trying to create these corridors and wipe out any other groups that are fighting in there that they have no control over. Get rid of any other fighters in there and bombard this entire region and destroy the infrastructure of Syria. Now, at the same time that this is happening, and this is very interesting because you have to remember that terror group that they just appeared out of nowhere, which is called Khorasan, which is out of the northern area of Iran, which they're trying to make links to. Of course, eventually what they want to do is go into Iran. We see that a Russian diplomat now says that the P5+1 talks are kind of falling apart. The P5+1 group of international mediators and Tehran have not reached agreement on any key issues surrounding Iran's nuclear program. It does not look like that any of the main issues are going to be resolved soon, and this is coming from the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister. And of course, this is exactly what's going on. They didn't want these talks to go forth. What they've been doing is every time Iran meets the nuclear deal, the United States central bankers come in and they change it up a little bit and say, oh, you haven't done this yet. And this is going absolutely nowhere. And we can see right now they are doing this on purpose. Now, there are reports out there saying that the Western airstrikes against the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS or ISIL, the Islamic State. Actually, I'll just call it the FSA/ISIS now because they're one and the same. They're saying they're hitting the targets in Iraq, in central northern Iraq, and this could prompt these terrorists, well, the group that is controlled by the United States central bankers, to move into Iran. And I think this is what they're trying to do because, again, wherever these groups are, this is where they want to go. And we can see right now they're trying to bring Iran into the battle, not on the side of the United States, but bring it in when they start attacking Syria, where Syria and Iran have a support agreement, and Iran will help with Syria. Now, Iran has already sent troops in to help Assad fight the Free Syrian Army, and I believe this is where the United States is actually doing right now. They're destroying all these other forces, destroying the infrastructure all around this area. Now, at the same exact time, Israel has come out and said they have high reliable info that Iran does have some type of nuclear weapons, and they are, getting ready to test this. The day before the Iranian president address to the UN General Assembly, Israel issued a statement again accusing the Islamic Republic of allegedly testing technology that could only be used for nuclear bombs. And they're basing this on highly reliable information. Now, in my other reports going way back, I mapped out how many times Israel, the U.S. government, has said Iran has nuclear weapons. This goes back 30 years. And every year or 2 years, they've always said that Iran is 3 to 5 months away from having nuclear weapons. Actually, if we go back just last year, they said when these P5+1 talks started, Israel was out there saying they're 6 weeks away from a nuclear weapon. So they continually use this propaganda, and of course, they never have any proof. Every time the IAEA goes in there, they always find out, nope, we do not see what you're talking about. Everything's Fine. Now, what they do is they keep pointing them to different locations. Well, you haven't seen this nuclear reactor. Well, eventually, when Iran lets them in there, nothing's there. No, you haven't seen this reactor. And they keep doing this. And this has been 30 years this has been going on. This is all propaganda. This is to bring Iran into this fight, because eventually what they want to do is remove Assad and then eventually get to Iran. This has been their goal from the beginning. Now, the embassies inside Turkey have issued security warnings for U.S. personnel. Incirlik Air Base and other U.S. military installations in Turkey are on heightened alert after the U.S. Embassy issued a security warning urging Americans in the country to be vigilant against potential terrorist attacks. Now, you can see what's happening here. They want to bring Turkey into the fight because eventually what they're going to do is they're going to be invading Syria. Forget about the Islamic State. This is exactly what they want to do. They want to bring Turkey into the fight. They want to bring all these countries into the fight, and they're maneuvering all of this right now, even though these countries backed out because they had no reason of going into Syria, because it is against international law. Syria never attacked them. They're still building up their military assets around this area, and you can see this with Turkey having a vote on October 2nd. France is thinking about going into Syria. They keep mentioning this, but they are in Iraq. We see UK calling the parliament back to go into Iraq. So they are going to pre-position all the forces right now because they know what is coming. Now, of course, the president here in the United States did not ask for authorization from Congress. They're going off all these different ridiculous reasonings and trying to use old laws to go into Syria, which none of them make any sense whatsoever. And of course, Representative Justin Amash tweeted Monday night it was irresponsible and immoral that congressional leaders had chosen to recess for nearly 2 months instead of debating and voting on war. And again, they left Washington to go campaign. As soon as they left, all of a sudden, Obama made the decision to go into Syria. This same thing happened back in the beginning of August, and I believe it was August 4th where I did a report where I said that, Congress is on vacation. Now we're going to see something happen in Iraq. Something's going to occur, and all of a sudden, the Islamic State came down from Jordan and from Syria into Iraq, and then all of a sudden Obama gave the okay to go in there and bomb. And now we're seeing the same exact thing happen. While Congress is away, Obama will play, and this is what is happening right now. Now, we understand that yesterday that the Army is going to be setting up a division headquarters inside of Iraq. Now, a division headquarters can consist of between 10,000 and 30,000 soldiers. So you think they're planning on something? And there are reports coming out of Iraq saying that, yes, 13,000 U.S. troops will be deployed to Iraq. Iraqi officials say that the United States is due to send 13,000 soldiers to Iraq despite its claim of complete military withdrawal from the country. So they are coming back. And we can see that everything is being set up for this. A division headquarters is being set up. And we can see right now there's already boots on the ground. More is to come. This is all in preparation to occupy Syria, to put this in full force. And we can see this is growing, and they're pushing this as hard as they possibly can. Now, in the Washington Times, I noticed there are calls that are growing now that the U.S. shouldn't just hit the Islamic State. They should hit Assad at the same time. And of course, the Syrian coalition is out there screaming, yes, this is what they should do. But I noticed a lot of the government officials are out there saying, since we're there already, why don't we just go after Assad? And we can see this has been planned from the beginning. Now, I see reports out there, and they're saying that, they are hitting the oil refineries inside Syria, but they've hit 12 modular oil refineries inside Syria. Now, of course, what they were doing before to get the oil is they were tapping off of pipelines, sending it into Iraq or Turkey to be refined. So this, to me, is kind of propaganda to make it seem like they're going after their money-making scheme, but they're not doing this whatsoever. They're hitting all these different areas, and if you notice, the areas that they're hitting are Raqqa. There's an air base there, military air base, which is taken over by the Islamic State. Now, those air bases are for the Syrian army, Syrian Air Force, I should say, and they are most likely destroying them. They said they bombed in Deir ez-Zor. That is another military air base. In Aleppo, it's another military air base. So what they're doing is they're strategically taking out this whole entire area, making sure there are no planes that could be lifting off from any of these areas, or they can't regain control of these areas, and they're just wiping out the infrastructure to the east of Syria, pushing the Free Syrian Army and the Islamic State to the west. And again, wherever the Islamic State goes, that's where the United States is going to bomb. This has been planned from the beginning. Now, what we're seeing right now, and this is an overview, we're seeing that the division headquarters in Iraq is being set up that can hold between 10,000 and 30,000 soldiers. Turkey's having a vote to go into Syria, moving military assets in position for Syria. UK recalling parliament to go into Iraq. U.S. bombing infrastructure of Syria, Aleppo, Raqqa, and Deir ez-Zor. They all have air bases, pretty much pushing the path and having them go in. They really don't need the oil smuggling money anymore, because what has happened is Congress has approved $500 million for the Free Syrian Army / the Islamic State. So really at this point they have been funded. Weapons are coming in. The FSA, ISIS, knew of the bombings and had left the area and are pushing towards Assad to take him out. U.S. preparing for full occupation of Syria. Again, they're building up for a false flag event to bring the boots on the ground into Syria, and we're already getting more additional warnings that the Islamic State will hit inside of the United States and will hit UK and France and other countries. So they're already pushing that. And we have to remember, on the coast of Syria, we have to remember that Russia has a port in Tartus, and they have their military ships in port right there. And Russia is not going to allow the United States to maneuver their way into this area to affect their military ships. And we're going to have to wait to see what Russia's plan is and how they react to the situation as they keep pushing. And we're going to have to watch where else they're going to bomb, because they've been bombing all those areas where the Islamic State was, which they are no longer. They've been moved off, and we're going to have to see if they start moving west and following the Islamic State, then we know for sure they are on the path to remove Assad. Now, of course, there could be other type of strategies, and we're going to have to watch all of this at this time. Now, we have to remember, Syria has a support agreement with Iran that if Syria is under attack, Iran will come to its aid. Syria is allies with Russia. They do have a port there, and we can also see if Iran then is attacked, China has very good relations with Iran, and this is where World War III could pretty much end up and start here. Now, as we go forward, we see that the U.S. decided to announce that they're going to impose sanctions on the terrorists. Now, of course, we know this is not going to work, because if you are a true criminal, you're a terrorist, everything is done in the black market, and all these sanctions are completely meaningless. Sanctions only work if you're dealing in the U.S. dollars. If you're dealing in gold, silver, or any other currency besides the U.S. dollar, and again, if you're using a lot of aliases, you can get around this whole entire thing. So this is just out there for propaganda purposes, which mean absolutely nothing. Now, we see more terror plots being broadcasted to everyone, and we have to look back for a second here. Now, we understand that the Islamic State, there was a video out there, and it showed that there was a beheading of 2 journalists and a British journalist. Now, you have to remember, these were all staged, and what's very interesting, and I have this on the People, which is the forum on the X22 X22Report.com site. I posted it, and it shows that they took the scene of the beheadings from a Turkish movie. And if you want to see that, you can just go right on the People. You don't have to sign up or anything. And what they did was they took the movie, which was a Turkish movie, and if you go to the 1 hour spot, you see it looks exactly like the beheading videos that we received from the so-called Islamic State, which we really don't know if that's really where it came from, because SITE intelligence agency, a Mossad-backed intelligence agency, produced them. They never give links of where they found this or how they came about getting this. So we know that this is all pretty much made up, fake, phony, and false. And the reason I'm pointing this out is because all these government officials are working on information that is absolutely not true, and none of them takes the time to look to see if they are real or not real. They're just believing whatever the Obama administration is putting out there. They're just believing what the central bankers are putting out there, and they're not working in the best interest of the people. Now, it seems like the Islamic State cells are plotting U.S.-France attacks. This is coming from the Iraqi Prime Minister. Here in the States, they're saying, no, we have no notification or any indications that this is going to occur, and they're saying they are looking at situations where the Islamic State is planning to hit subways. And we can see right now, if I remember correctly, didn't New York have a drill where there were chemical weapons inside the New York subway system, and they were practicing just in case this instance would occur? Now, this kind of fits into what is happening. And of course, they can say, and they can mix this attack up with Syria. They can mix it up with the Islamic State, saying, yes, now they have attacked us. They use chemical weapons in the subway system. So this is something that we really need to look out for and to keep an eye on. All these things that are coming out and what these individuals are saying, that we need to keep and understand what is going on and make sure that we understand, yes, this was a past drill. We know what they're planning. We understand what's going on here. And they need to do something. They need some type of an event still to really get the boots on the ground inside Syria. We can see they're ramping up to do this, but what is going to be the catalyst to actually get the boots into this area? And I'm still thinking that this is going to be definitely a false flag event, because the economy is completely crumbling apart. They need to get the votes from Congress. They need the American people behind them to go to war. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.